And I'm back, and I am so excited to introduce our next guest, who actually requires very little introduction if you are a fan of a little show that you may have heard of called Masterchef Australia. This guy is bringing veggies back, and he sings to my soul when he does it. I've loved seeing Simon Toohey cook a couple of times now in a really, really delightful way. He's right here, right next to me. G'day, Simon.
Hello.
I am so excited to have a little chat to you after your demonstration and to share some of the questions that you, the attendees, have as well. So if you've got any questions for Simon, please do tap them in. We've had some fantastic conversations already. We've had some really great questions and answers that you might like to read. But while you're doing that, take it away, Simon Toohey, with a pickling and vegetable preserving demonstration. Fireball.
Say when.
When?
Hello all, Simon Toohey here from Sustainable Earth Network and Masterchef Season 11 and 12. Welcome to my Zero Waste Festival Masterclass on pickling. This is something that I love to do because, especially during these times when everyone is panic buying, there's a heap of leftover food. And I know everyone's probably going to be saying that in their masterclasses, but me, I like to find things that are gone pretty much on sale and about to run out of legs and maybe not lasting that much longer in the cupboard or in the fridge or anything. So today, my pickling and my zero waste masterclass is going to be on these beautiful little cocktail onions. I picked up 1.5 kilos of these from the shops down the road for $1.50, and I could not see them go to waste. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about how easy it is to pickle things. This application does not have to be just for onions. It can be for anything: carrots, zucchinis, cucumbers, chilies, all these things. There's heaps of examples. I don't want to burn myself. Got heat going in there. Heaps of examples. They're just a couple. You've got me in the corner of the kitchen because at the moment, probably everything behind you is a little messy. So we're going to make everything here look nice and tidy and everything over there an absolute mess. So you might get a glimpse of it. But come over here. Look, we have olives. It's olive season. So these are our greeny ones, our greeny ready ones. They've had 2 days of brining. And these are our black olives. They've just been washed, and you can see. Oh yes, look at the bubbles. Look at that. There we go, they're active. So these are our delicious olives. So they're gonna be ready in, I don't know, ages. They're gonna be ready in about a month or two. These will be ready in a couple of weeks, I'd say. But exciting.
What's your process?
For what?
Olives.
The olives. Yes, the olive process is amazing. It is, with the black ones, it's like rinsing them every single day in warm water for about a week, and then just dry salt brining them, and then they'll release their own liquid, so they end up making their own brine. And then with the green ones, that salt brine straight away. 1 cup of salt to 5 liters of water. And then we'll just make sure the water's covering the olives. That's what you need to make sure. So I've got this cool little rubber stopper that's making everything sort of weighed down. I probably should put a little bit of a weight in there. And then you keep doing that for about a week and a half, and then you do another really good salt solution and with a lot of aromats, and then you let that sit for, I don't know, a few weeks, I think, until they taste good. Just keep trying them until they are finally palatable. But hopefully they work out. Otherwise, I've made them when they've gone wrong and they go completely spazzy and waterlogged and gross, and I've had to throw it all out. So that's really, really sad. And that's not what we're about. So back onto topic. I digress. Onions. We're going to do 2 different types. The first one is going to be like classic style pickled onions, super vinegary, really vibrant. Let them sit for a couple of weeks, and then you can just snack on them in sandwiches, in salads, anything you want. But I've cut them, taken the skins off, and I've cut them in half, right? Pretty simple. Nothing you can do slices. Let's just come to the fact. I'm going to come to you. Let's just get to the point. Everything I do is not rule of thumb. Everything I do is rule of thumb. Nothing is set in stone. If you don't want to do it this way, then do it another way. Perfect. Up to you. So I put bay leaves, I put mustard seeds, I put 1 dried chili, I put a tablespoon of coriander seeds, and I put a tablespoon of still good. and I put a tablespoon of, I put a teaspoon of mustard seeds and a tablespoon of coriander seeds. That's it. Okay, so in a pot, what we want to do is we want to get your vinegar really hot. You want it to get it to melt your sugar. And look, I'm one of those households that keep using stuff until we're nearly out and then remember that I need to go buy stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a mixture of red wine vinegar and white wine vinegar. Because I'm about to run out of white wine. And you can use a little bit of balsamic if you have to. I know recipes with rice wine vinegar if you want. So there's heaps of options. It's not, again, it's that vinegar, wonderful depth of vinegar, flavour that you want. And we're not about specifics today. This is about ease. This is about pickling things for the fun of it and enjoying the process, okay? So if you're not in a freaking five-star restaurant, then this home-style pickle is my jam. So in there, 1 cup. Good. Now, sugar. We're going to do a little under. Raw sugar. I got raw because it was close at hand. 3/4. Maybe we'll do a half to start with. A half cup to start with. And again, as I said, everything here is subject to change. Spoon. Tongs. Come on over, have a look. All right, vinegar, sugar. I'm going to add some salt, stay there. Big pinch of salt, so I reckon that's a good teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to add, stay there again, a third of a cup of water. Third of a cup of water. There we go. Right. Now this should be pretty intense. And while you're videoing, maybe will that help? Oh my gosh. How's that?
Good.
Better? I'm gonna get a spoon. Taste it. Good. It should be vinegary. It should be vinegary, my eyes are watering. It should be vinegary, it's meant to be, but there should be an essence of sweetness with a little bit of salt, but then mill it out with the water so it's not like just vinegar and you're like,
What was that?
It's like balanced. Now these, if we're talking zero waste, these are all the skins. Oh, that's right, 1 clove of garlic. 2 cloves of garlic, crushed. So all the things that I used are in here. They're all the onion skins, the garlic skins. Now I've got water on the boil. These are an amazing way to make stock. So I'm literally dumping it all in. Turn the temperature down so it's on low, so it doesn't boil away. Just a nice simmer. Get the lid. Bam. Now, in about an hour's time, we have garlic stock. In an hour's time, we have onion and garlic stock. So that's great. So there's stock, and then you have your own stock to make risottos. You have your own stock to use in pastas. You have your own stock to make in any sort of big long stews you want to do. So you're using everything. From there, we've basically pretty much retarded all flavour from the onion skins. So I put it in. Or Georgia and I have this amazing little compost. It ferments all the veggies, and this is because we're in an apartment with no garden. It ferments all our vegetables, creates this beautiful liquid which you can put on your, give to friends, and you spray it with this fermentation accelerator, and then that basically then you bury that in like a community garden. So that's where our scraps go. We really try to fight all food waste here.
What does the liquid do?
So the liquid's like a fertilizer for your other vegetables and garden. So anyone who has a garden, we give that. In fact, we put a little sign on a box and say, take it for free. 1 to 100, 1 part vegetable stuff to 100 mils of water. Spray that in your garden. Delicious. So good. And so we give that away. because we don't have a garden. And then we bury the compost stuff, which is really accelerated and all broken down. We bury that in community gardens or at George's mum's place because they've got a compost out the back. Now come back over here quickly. We are boiling. See that? Sugar is melted. We are boiling. Turn that off. This then comes over here. And we pour.
It smells insane.
Smells good. Come on, come on, nearly there. All right. We're a little short, aren't we? Well, that's annoying. Okay, wait. We can fix this. So up the levels. Vinegar. We're close, right? Like we're really close. You can't deny not close. Okay, so bring that back up to the boil. Finally, the next one we're going to do. So I've got two different types. One is this one. Obviously, we're doing that now, so we'll wait till that boils. And the second one, we're gonna do a white soy, mirin, sake, white wine vinegar, tare, which is like a seasoning, a Japanese like seasoning they use for things for soups like ramens. I made this the other day for a ramen, and we didn't have any. We had so much left over, so I'm just gonna. It's basically like a umami. What did you call it?
Umami juice.
Umami juice. So it's an umami juice, and so we're going to use that for the next one. Now you can use soy sauce. If you have some mirin, you can use mirin. Awesome. If you have sake, great. If you have rice wine vinegar, great. Mix those. So mix the white soy with the rice wine vinegar with a bit of sugar. Perfect. Leave it at that. Add a chili flake. Add a chili, dried chili. Not a single flake. You might be there for a while. So heaps of options that you can do. Try playing with flavors. All you're trying to do is get a preservative out of this whole thing, and so you're going to stop things from basically going bad. Okay, so that's boiling. Off. All right, here we go. You made it. Perfect. Now, we might have even overfilled it this time. There we go. Lid on. So leave those to cool out, and then once they've cooled, put them in the freezer for about a week. You can eat them tomorrow, you can eat them, in the fridge. Freezer. Put them in the fridge for a week, and they're gonna be absolutely amazing. And then put them on sandwiches. Go crazy. Right, next one. Our soy number. This is pretty seriously thick. So it was like 250 mils of white soy, 2 tablespoons of sake, 2 tablespoons of mirin, 2 tablespoons of rice wine vinegar, but I used white wine vinegar, and then reduce that down by a quarter. So it's really thick. I mean, look at that. Look how thick that is. Right, so I'm just going to bring that back up to the boil, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add water to that to soften it because it's really strong. And then taste it to make sure we're not poisoning ourselves. Okay, so it needs a bit more vinegar. So it's salty, but I want vinegar because right now it's good. So when I first made it, the saltiness was there to adjust the lack of seasoning from the ramen broth. So considering now what I want to do is a balance of sour, vinegariness, and saltiness and sweetness, I'm going to add more vinegar. And I know I'm using red wine vinegar, but I'm out of white wine vinegar. This is what I do at home. You're in my house, okay? So deal with it. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Okay, so that was... Ooh, try this. Ooh.
Ooh.
Whoa, bit of sugar. Salivating.
Whoa.
A little bit of sugar. Just a
Oh
little.
my god, my cheeks going nuts.
I love it. Okay.
What's that?
Oh, it's Friday, so I'm having a whiskey. It's actually Wednesday. Oh, and stay there. Wait, I'm going to go behind you. Stay there. Don't move. Don't look at me. Here is last time I did the onion skin stock. So that's what it comes out like. And I just put it in the freezer. Really beautiful. So that will boil for an hour. We'll strain that off. If you really want to go to the whole way and not wasting anything, you can then blend it up at the end when you strain it off. Blend it up and then add flour and water and a bit of like butter or something like that. And then you can make like onion skin crisps. Cool. So this is coming to the boil. That's nearly ready to go. We are super close. I had a lid for the other one. Oh, it's on there. Not much to know you're there, even if you're like the secret camera person. All right, everyone from Zero Waste Festival. I hope this has been in any way helpful. I've really enjoyed doing this actually, because I quite like being able to play around at home. But think about everything that you have that you could waste, that could be wasted. You can always turn into a beautiful pickle, which adds to so many different dishes afterwards. I really ask you to think about that, and especially when you have things like in-season produce, like at the moment, you know, we're getting into broccoli and collie, and we're getting into onions and all these sorts of things. These are going to be cheap at the market, so I really think they're the things you should be focusing on buying. This is boiling now. Turning it off. Pouring it in. Look at that. All right, lid on. Label your food, everyone. Label date. Here we go. 15 minutes of quality pickling sessions with Simon Toohey. Thank you so much, Zero Waste Festival. Love you lots. Pickled onions, pickled onions. Happy Wednesday.
Simon,
Saturday, by the way.
Toohey.
Or Friday. I changed as well.
There was...
Completely changed.
I've got to say that was a very layered performance. Everybody at home was enjoying that so much. I'm reading the questions and I'm taking a lot of them as comments or statements actually, because there's just so many people who have so much love for you and so much love for the style of cooking that you do, which I think, you know, having been through the Masterchef journey, I know that the Masterchef kitchen is kind of not conducive to that kind of cooking. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. The time is not your friend in that kitchen. And I think in so many ways, the wonderful thing about even pickling, to get the full flavor you really want, it's time. We don't have that. It's difficult.
Yeah. So would you say actually that this period of working from home has shown a lot of people that they've got more time than they might otherwise have thought to do things like pickle and, you know, make sourdough?
Oh gosh, sourdough, isn't that beautiful? I agree with you on that one. I love it, and I don't care if it's this bandwagon thing. I am riding that bandwagon as fast as I possibly can. It's so good. But you know what? I think a lot of food that we forget, especially in the plant-based world, for me, is that time is really important. Time brings flavor. You know, we talk about in the Masterchef kitchen all about pressure cookers and, you know, hibachis and all those sort of like buzzwords that we're using that we know is all crazy. But the hibachis are different, but we cook it really fast. I mean, the other thing is the pressure cooker is extremely fast. And so if you're short of time, then great. But what this period right now is giving us is that time where we can put things in the oven and slowly braise and slowly pickle and slowly ferment and make beautiful sourdough because it's a labor of love. So all these things are available for us right now. And what it's really doing is, although when we go back to our regular day's work, you know, when all this sort of finishes, we've actually sort of broken the barrier of unknowing, or broken the barrier of not knowing how to do it in the first place. And so now that we're familiar, then we can play on ways that we can make it either go a little faster, or we can play on ways that, you know, we can do it in the morning and come back home in the evening and it's there. And we now know what we're doing. We're breaking that barrier, which is great.
And I think that if there's anything that you've been able to do through now 2 seasons of MasterChef and through your work with the Sustainable Earth Network, which is super cool to watch. If you haven't checked it out, everyone go to YouTube, check out Simon's work there. And you're shooting season 2 at the moment, which is super exciting to learn as well.
Yeah.
But I did have a question there. That gateway that MasterChef has afforded you, I think, is also grabbing people's imagination. We've got some questions here. It's a pretty simple question, actually. Let's start. Actually, we'll start with the brining question. So this is from Catherine. She wants to know, when you're making your brine, do you just pour it over when it's hot like that? Do you let it cool before you pour it over the veg? Does that maybe does it differ for hard skinned veg versus soft skinned or anything like that?
There's a lot of different ways you can do it, and I think really it's trial and error. I mean, I think a lot of pickling stuff always comes down to trial and error. But the reason why I poured over was boiling hot. Excuse me, the dishwasher just went off. The reason why I poured over boiling hot is because, in one way, if I hadn't, and in that situation I hadn't sterilised my jars, I'm pouring 100-degree liquid over into my jar and that's sterilising it. Not only that, but it's also going to soften the veggies just slightly. So it's going to keep its texture and crunch, which I love, but you need to make sure that it's penetrating the skins of that vegetable or whatever you're cooking. So with that heat, it will allow it to do that. And so I'm sterilizing the jar, and I'm allowing to that accelerate that flavor component of the onion or whatever it is I'm pickling.
And would you say that pouring over that boiling hot liquid is enough to sterilise any sort of jar? So we've got a question from Amy, for example, about making preserved lemons. And the last time that she did it, they went mouldy. So could that have been because her jar wasn't sterilised, or what else?
100%. The best way to do this is to throw it in the oven at about 120 degrees for about 30 minutes. That might even be too long. It could even be less than that. But what you're trying to do is you just... look, they've already been eaten. So I know for a fact that I'm going to make them and I'm going to eat them within the week, and they're going to go in the fridge and they're not going to go south. It's very much the excessive acidity, salt and sugar, which are all preservatives, have the ability to kill bacteria to a certain extent. Like, I'm not absolutely saying pour it into something that's really filthy and say it's going to work, because I'm not going to be liable for you guys getting sick when you pour it into a dirty bucket. But it does allow things to get killed. But if you want to be safe, and I do advise purists of the pickling and fermenting world, especially if you're doing a salt pickle, so a lacto ferment pickle, which you don't boil the water for, I'd advise, if you research into that, and we can talk about that if anyone has any questions, but I'd advise you to sterilize your jars in the oven or in boiling water in a big pot in a pan for a while as well. So you need to make sure that everything is clean. These had come out of the dishwasher and they've gone straight into my cupboard. I was satisfied and happy with the safety of them.
And on the topic of safety, are you storing your pickles in the fridge always? Are there certain jars that you're keeping in the laundry or in your pantry?
Yeah. If I'm doing vinegar pickle, all my vinegar pickles go into the fridge once they're cooled at room temperature. So I bring them down to room temperature. That acceleration of that acceleration of chilling from really hot to really cold in the fridge can be quite detrimental to your foods as a food health standard level. But when I start doing things in places like a pantry, and if you want to do a walkabout at my house, I've got 25 litres of mead sitting in I think I can show you. 25 litres of mead sitting in a duvet or in a doona cover with a thermometer in it to make sure it's staying at temperature. So there's 25 litres of mead. So that's sugar-based. So sugar-based is always going to need at least 20 to 30 degrees, that sort of variation of heat to help that fermentation process going. And then in my bathroom, I've got 15 litres of ginger beer growing as well. So, which is great. And then stay there. And this is what I made my ginger beer. These guys, by the way, if anyone wants a pickles and you can't be bothered making it at home, these guys rock. That's a little plug. I didn't even think I was going to do that. But this is a ginger bug. So this is what creates 15 litres of ginger beer. And all this is a teaspoon of sugar, raw organic sugar, and a teaspoon of organic ginger powder, and then a cup of water. And then you just keep feeding one teaspoon every day. And get that fermentation going. And then after about 3 weeks, you can make your first ginger beer. And it's really beautiful. I can send the recipe through if we need it.
I reckon that you should share that on your Insta story, because if you're not already following Simon Toohey on the socials, please do, and he'll pop that recipe because I want it too. Fun fact that is a little BTS of our season. We actually made our own alcoholic ginger beer because we weren't allowed to drink.
I heard this.
Yeah, it was wild. And yeah, we got into massive trouble. So, but hey,
I heard all about that actually. I was so impressed.
Yeah. Ours was clearly the best season, but you couldn't have been on my season because I was you. So there can be only one.
Right. That's awesome.
So back onto sterilisation, because actually, and you know, it's interesting to me, and I'm not surprised, a lot of the questions that we are getting through around pickling and preserving are around food safety and sterilisation. Do you want to talk to that first? Where do you think that kind of attitude or those preconceived notions and fears come from?
Well, it really, from my knowledge, would have come from canning, the standard world of post-World War II canning situations where that became the major source of food. And they didn't understand the worlds of pressure and altitude and how high and how hot you get the liquid and volume, and physical stuff inside the can for a certain period of time. And what people were doing was just hoping for the best. And then the wonderful world of botulism came about. And that's that scary word that that really is something that no one wants. It's just awful. And so the idea, I mean, of course, all bacteria is definitely is not at all bad. But if you're finding colors of bacteria in your jars, you need to start sterilizing, that's for sure. But there's a white layer of film.
Can we hold that? Sorry to interrupt you for 1 second, but I feel like that's really important. You mentioned different colors. Could you, you mentioned the white you were going to go there, weren't you? Okay, go
Yes,
ahead.
I was. Yes. So it's interesting. So there's a couple, and again, can we just make it that this, I'm not 100%, I do not have a scientific knowledge of this. I have a
Simon Toohey's rule of thumb.
Yes, thank you. That's great.
Take it with a grain of salt.
Yes, correct. Done. If you salt, speaking of salt, if you salt ferment, so lacto ferment, and you don't leave your the solids under the liquid, and the same goes with vinegar pickle, you just need to make sure everything's under the liquid because oxygen is what creates that bad bacteria. So oxygen through lactic ferment creates bad bacteria if it hits the top of the solids that haven't been put underneath the water. So obviously liquid creates a seal. It's the same when you make beer or mead, for this example, you have a little S-bend at the top that has a water layer. So oxygen can't get in, but the inside has got that fermentation CO2 and that's escaping out. So nothing can come in and everything can go out. So you need to eradicate air to your ferment. That's one of the most important things. The second, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, is a white film of mold that can go on top of a lacto ferment. And it almost looks shiny, like it looks a little weird and it groups up in certain spots. And it's purely white. This actually isn't a bad mold. This is very much consumable. It probably, if you eat a lot of it, it'll probably give you a bit of a dicky tummy, but I'd advise that you just scrape it off and then push down all of the solids that are in the liquid and re-go again. Don't throw it out, it'll still be fine. Now, if you see blue, pink, gray, black mold, get rid of it. Do not touch it. It is something that you will not want to consume and it will not be good for you. And finally, the one we're talking about, botulism, is usually done through pressure-based cooking. And I know a lot of Americans, especially in the South, do a lot of pickling through that way or preserving through jars and canning. But in saying that, botulism isn't something you need to worry about too much. Again, rule of thumb, because I did a read up of it recently and it's like in 2019, there was 20 cases of botulism and only one case of botulism within those cases. And this is in America, so it's American facts. Only one case of botulism came from food alone. So it's Google it. The facts are as big as that, like as weird as that. So botulism isn't too much. Finally, just to keep talking, the one other thing I'd say is you'd understand this one, and everyone who eats vegetables and of course meat, the smell test. Just smell it. If it doesn't smell right, it's not right. And it's not right for your brain because you don't want to sit on that for the next 10 hours hoping to God that you haven't eaten something bad. So smell it. Sorry.
So trust your instincts, basically, your eyeballs, your sense of smell, and finally your taste as well. I know when I was pregnant, all of those senses were just like so heightened, and I think it reinforced for me how we have all of those skills within us. We are self-contained little units of self-protection, right, and self-preservation. And it kind of, I think that societal expectations of safety and risk aversion have eroded our faith in that and our trust in that. And this return, you know, Sandor Katz talks about the fact that there is no such thing as good and bad bacteria, you know, and he is the fermentation revivalist. Hey, speaking of Sandor and speaking of fermentation, you've talked a lot about it. Is there a text that you'd recommend for anyone that's listening in and thinking, wow, this sounds really interesting, I'd like to enter in? What's the gateway text for you?
Totally. There's a few layers of text of entering into fermentation, because there are so many levels, as you know. If you're looking at books, obviously Sandor Katz, The Art of Fermentation, has to be the go-to. It's a lot of writing. If you like your photos, then so be it. Then there's a few others you can go to as well. If you hold the line, I'll be back in a sec.
Okay, we're standing by. He's going to bring the Noma fermentation book. I have absolutely no doubt in my mind. That's a really good one. Sharon from the Fermentary, Sharon Flynn, wrote a really fantastic text around fermentation. It's a blue cover. It's a gorgeous book. Okay, watch him. He's going to lift out.
Right.
Okay, show us what you brought.
Classic Sandor Katz
Sandor
fermentation. Take a screenshot if you need to. We've got it. Love it. Great. Of all levels. Start from kombucha all the way up, right? Then we got a great one by Holly Davis, who is just the guru as well. She is fantastic. Met her at the Longhouse in Dowsford. An absolute guru, based out of Sydney and London, depending on where, because I think her daughter's based in London. Next level, which I think is probably one of the most friendly fermentations around, and I think everyone's really quite familiar with. Just taking kombucha to the next level, really.
Is that a full, just like a kombucha cookbook?
Mate, look at it. Look at the thickness.
I can't.
It's so much about it. There's 378 pages of kombucha. So, you know, but it's also got things down to, like, it goes down to the small problems of it all. But then look, kombucha dill pickles, you know, so that's really, really cool. And then if you do kombucha, if you're into vinegar, kombucha vinegar is fantastic. All you do is just ferment it for longer until it tastes like vinegar. Put it in a jar and you can use it for cooking. It's fantastic. So never throw your kombucha out if you over ferment it. And then finally, the classic as well. This is obviously like levels above me. But it's sort of like in that levels, Art of Fermentation, the Holly Davis one equal kombucha. And then if you really want to go into it, this has got some great technical stuff, and worth a look as well. I mean,
and great pictures as well. I like that as well.
So exciting.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, super cool. Hey, that was really helpful, Simon Toohey. Thank you for all of those books. We've got a little bit more time and a few more questions. Oh, there we go. Catherine's given you the name. It's called Calm Yeast, K-A-H-M. Cam yeast.
Yeah.
Harmless white film, don't worry about it. Use your eyeballs. Now, back to the preserved lemons. I think you gave enough, so probably keep it submerged, right? Because it's a salt brine, so that might be why, right?
Yeah, well, it will create its own liquid. So when you salt to start with, it'll be fine, because what it's going to do, salt is the wonderful devil of the bacterial world in a bad sense. But it creates that lacto ferment, and so it will, as you know, salt draws out moisture. So there's going to be a level where, as you salt your lemons, if you've taken all the pith out, all the fruit out, then you're going to find it really hard to get the level of liquid. But if you leave a bit of that lemon center in, you'll actually find that liquid will be drawn out, and it will slowly over the coming days with a weight on top. So it's really important to weight the top, because that will then press everything down and raise that liquid level. And if not, if you find it doesn't actually go under, adding a little bit of filtered water is probably the best way to go, and that won't harm it at all. It's probably a really good thing to do. So check it out over the next couple of days. I made some kimchi just over here, and it was a very dry kimchi, and I just wanted to test it without doing a day before salting or a day before brining. So I literally did everything in one go. And so I put it into my crock with a weight on top and a couple of cans of beans, just to put a bit of extra weight on there. Dry, no covering of liquid at all. And 2 days later, that liquid has risen because it's drawn out all that moisture from the wombok, and is now sitting just above my kimchi levels. And so just keep an eye on it. If it doesn't do it, I just add a bit of water.
Awesome. Now, speaking of kimchi, Jen is asking you, she actually is not a fan of kimchi. So she's probably cringing just listening to that story. But
Sorry.
what she would like to know is how many fermented items or how many ferments should she be eating for her gut health? And are there other ferments to think about?
Ooh, what a great question. Scientifically, again, I probably wouldn't be the one to ask. However, yeah, exactly right. Simon's rule of thumb. But I don't see any harm in eating ferments nearly in every. I mean, if you look at Japan and Korea, they are the great example of constantly eating fermented ingredients. Whether it's ginger during sushi, whether it's kimchi during every single meal, whether it's up in the very North Island, they do this wonderful thing where they, in the winter, the only thing that really grows is daikon because it's so cold, and so they dig it out and then they salt it, and then they smoke it. So they salt it until it dries up, and then they smoke it for wrong way around. They smoke it for a really long time so it dries up, and then they salt it and pickle it, and so that turns sour, vinegary, and salty at the same time with a wonderful essence of. And they just put that with snacks, so they're eating it daily. I don't think, and again, doctors don't quote me, that eating a bit of a pickled element, a vinegar pickle, it's not really bacterial for your belly. It's not really going to do much. It's more for flavor. But things like lacto-ferment salt pickle, I don't see why a little bit in every single meal is going to be an issue at all, because I've been doing it. And look at me, I'm a picture of shining health, right?
Yes. Perfect. And so, Jen, you might like to think about trying other flavors, like say sauerkraut, if you want something a little bit simpler, with juniper berries, or taking a probiotic, as far as I'm concerned, is boring. Why would you do that when you can eat your bugs? So, and what a fantastic way of using vegetable peelings and scraps. So, this is the Sustainability Festival. We're talking about zero waste. You mentioned onion chips, onion skin chips, which sounds really cool, and pumpkin skin chips as well. How are you pickling or preserving other skins, vegetable skins? Because I think you've really piqued people's curiosity with there, as did Hero from Kinfolk.
Totally. Everything. It's quite funny, unless you're pickling chocolate, which is just not possible. Everything can pretty much be pickled. Anything that is relatively solid. I mean, you heard the bubbles from those olives that were just going crazy. So I look at stuff that would hold up in liquid, and I take that as a level of a rule of thumb of whether that's worthy of being pickled or preserved or not. So those wonderful pumpkins. Here's a couple of examples. Pumpkin skins take off. So usually a good rule of thumb, Simon's rule of thumb, is about 2.5 to 3% salt per weight of solid, right? So whatever the solid be. So pumpkin skins, take them off, salt water, but the salt level is whatever the weight of your pumpkin skin is. Fill it with water, dilute the salt up, and then pour it in together. Happy days, right? Let it ferment, keep burping it every single day until that salt has turned to vinegar, or there's a balance that you really like, and it really is up to you. And then you can steam them and then roast them. So you're gonna get this wonderful lactic ferment, like nacho chip. And so you can douse it in like Mexican seasonings, all that wonderful flavors, and then roast them in the oven, sour cream, guacamole, even some, refried Brent beans, and you can have the most amazing sort of like vegetarian based nachos, which is awesome. The other one is great, which I really love, and just going outside the box here, is this wonderful one, which is you roast potatoes in salt. So just a whole potato, skin on just on a bed of salt. And you know what? You don't have to have the salt. If you don't have the salt, don't worry. Just put baking paper so it doesn't stick to the tray. Cut it in half after it's really soft in the middle. Scoop out the inside, and then do the same process again. 3%, 2.5% salt to the weight of the inside of the potato, and then water, and you ferment the potato insides. And then from there, you drain it off, add flour, and make tortillas, fermented potato tortillas. And I know this might be a little bit ridiculous, but in my mind, that excites me. And if I think about wanting to do that, I'm going to crave it for the whole week. I could start it now, and I can have it on, what day is it today? Today's not Wednesday. Today is Saturday, so I can have it next Saturday. You know what I mean? So it's a labor of love and we have time at the moment. Great ones are like roasted beetroot. You roast beetroot, you take the skins off, and then you cut them in quarters or whatever size the beetroot is, put them in a jar with your salt levels and 3 or 4 spring onions, whole spring onions, stuff it in, fill it with water. And then what happens is that beetroot liquid that seeps out turns the liquid thick and like kind of like this awesome texture in a really lovely way, not in a gloopy kind of gross way. And they go great on salads. They go great with mushrooms. They go great. Oh, it's just divine. So there's heaps of options. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to sort of throw some ideas around.
So we've got a couple. I've gone over time, but
sorry, I know, and I rant a lot, so I'm.
No, I think we've got so many fantastic questions. So I want to honour everyone's time and take this opportunity to inspire as many people that are watching to get fermenting and pickling.
Totally.
So a couple really quick practical questions. One is about when you're putting your jars into the oven to sterilise them, are you putting the lids in as well? Because Jessica's done it and she's melted a few lids. So how are you repurposing old jars?
Okay, so
we've all been there.
Yeah, guilty as charged. And the worst is when you don't get good jars. You get the cheap ones from the $2 shop and they explode. So they need to be reinforced. They need to be the ones that can handle oven heat and water. So, all the jars you get from the supermarket that have jarred stuff in it, like, you have your pickles in there, you can use those again. They're fine. But it's the ones that you get from the $2 shop that are usually not very good for boiling hot. So when I was pouring that vinegar over the top, I was actually quite afraid that I had got the wrong jar and it may have actually exploded. Anyway, by the by, the idea is, yes, you should put the lids in with it. Do not make sure the lids aren't plastic, then it won't probably melt. But also you got to look at the inside of the plastic lid. That sometimes that rubber plastic lining that some of them have. So therefore boil them, put them in, boil the kettle, pour the boiling kettle over it. And that'll do just fine. And the second part is a great one, is when you pour the boiling hot liquid into your product, if you're doing vinegar pickle, put the lid on, and especially with jams and stuff, put the lid on and then turn it upside down and put the lid there so all the contents just sits on the lid. Make sure you look at it and keep an eye on it for about 5 minutes, because if it starts leaking, you're screwed, but it should be okay.
And then when you flip it back up and the top has indented, then you know that it's sealed. Yeah, and then can you store it in the pantry or into the fridge still?
I will always store my stuff in the fridge when it comes to that sort of stuff. Again, because I want to have it for as long as possible, and the pantry will not guarantee me time and longevity in stuff that I am not scientifically knowledgeable on whether it's going to stay or not.
Nice. Okay, and we've got one last question. Okay, no, I'm going to ask 2 more questions. So question 1, this is really cute. Tan, I love it. I have never pickled anything. What is the easiest way to start? What is the simplest thing to pickle?
Awesome. Great question. Carrots, always. Cucumber or onion. Best and easiest way to get the best flavor, I think. And always run by that sort of rule, a cup of vinegar to half a cup of sugar, to a big pinch of salt, to a quarter cup of water. Bring it to the boil and then pour it over the top of your carrots. If you have carrots, cut them into little rings and put them in the jar, or if you like strips, put them in there and cut them and pour it in top. Try it once, and I guarantee you will do it again.
I love that. Okay, this is your last question, Simon Toohey. Kirsty Bishop Fox wants to know when you are publishing a book, because she is hanging on for dear life waiting for it.
I love that. Maybe you and I, Alice, should talk about doing one little collab of a book about sustaining food and stopping food waste. But I'm writing one as we speak. So
awesome.
Hold tight, watch this space. I would like, if anyone knows a publisher that's keen to publish a book, be in touch. I think that's the hardest point at this COVID point, is that no one's really printing anymore. So, but the book is ready to go. It's just all about getting it printed.
Awesome. So in the meantime, make sure that you check out the Sustainable Earth Network. They've got a really cool website as well as a YouTube channel. So do have a squiz. And Aditya wants everyone to know. I love how communal and how much sharing there is going on, because we're all experts in our own fields, right? So Aditya is a thrift shopper, and there are plenty of fantastic jars in op shops. So
yes, there are.
Yeah,
So
why
that's where I
not?
get most of mine. Savers is my favorite. Sorry if that's where you work.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, here's the thing. Everyone who's been sparking joy in kitchens and getting rid of a whole bunch of stuff, why don't we repurpose it and take advantage of, all of these things and bring them home and put them to good use? So you have inspired everybody, Simon Toohey, to do just that. And I hope that you continue to do it. And I look forward to sitting down to dinner and tasting some of those fantastic treats, like those crazy potato tortillas and pumpkin skin nachos.
Yes,
amazing.
Definitely do it for you. Don't even worry.
Brilliant. That's awesome. Well, that's it from Simon Toohey. Make sure you follow him, simon.toohey. That's it for now from me, Alice in Frames. Check out this really cool ad. Are you ready to fireball?
Yes.
Fireball.
Of course. Oh my God. I'm going to be here for hours. All right. All right. You've made me do it. It's like that trick where you pull the thing out of your thumb. Like the thing that keeps coming out of you. It's like that, but not. All right.
New episodes of The Whole Thing streaming every Thursday at 3 p.m. only on the Sustainable Earth Network.